Tonight I want to call to order the Human Services Committee meeting for, sorry, Peter Frank. Okay. I want to call to order the Human Services Committee meeting for September 16, 2010. Tonight's topics is an overview and understanding of Veterans Affairs Division of Camden County. And first up is Mr. Ross.
Good evening. This is the ultimate study in contrast, going from Graysdale to Veterans Affairs. Graysdale has over 600 full-time employees and probably a couple hundred part-time employees. Veterans Affairs has 2 employees. And so this is more the old-fashioned social work. My roots and many others' roots in the field. So this is truly just about helping people on a one-to-one basis. People who will come to the office or call with a wide range of issues. They'll call because Dave or his secretary helped a friend, helped a family member, and when they had troubles, it was suggested that they call Dave. And so it's very different. A lot of help with governmental benefits, but also help with a wide range of issues. One of the reasons why Mr. Stofa wanted it moved to Human Services was to build the links between Veterans Affairs and some of the other divisions like mental health and aging and Graysdale, and to a lesser extent, children, youth, early intervention. So, the 2 of the biggest areas of expenditures is once a year they work with veterans groups to make sure the grave sites of veterans are properly marked with some sort of a marker and a flag. And then also there are burial benefits. And the burial benefits, we are proposing that they change as of January 1. It'll be part of the new budget. State law is requiring us to, for the first time, to pay a burial benefit to peacetime veterans. Before it was only wartime veterans. People who served, for example, between Korea and Vietnam, who were not entitled to any death benefits, will now get at least a partial benefit. With that, I'll introduce Dave Graff. He's our Director of Veterans Affairs. He's been with us. I had to ask him. I didn't realize in January it'll be 4 years. It seems like we just hired him. But, so he's done a real nice job, and he seems very dedicated to veterans. I shouldn't say he seems. He is very dedicated to veterans. So with that, Dave, it's yours.
Good afternoon. I took this job because I wanted to help my fellow veterans, and that's what we're doing. So I thought I would explain the county benefits first. Ross mentioned about the burial allowance. Right now, for wartime veterans, they receive a $100 burial allowance. They also receive $100 toward the installation of the base of the government marker. Okay, the government marker is this. You've probably seen in cemeteries.
Yeah.
It's a flat, usually people get the flat bronze marker. And of course there's a base goes under that, and that's what the $100 goes toward, that base. Or if they don't get the federal marker, it's $100 toward the inscription of military information on the private gravestone. Plus, the wartime veteran's widow receives a $100 burial allowance. So actually then the wartime veteran gets a $300 benefit. So the change comes in that now all veterans will receive the $100 toward the installation of the bronze marker or the inscription on the private stone if they so desire. And that's what we'll be implementing January 1st. And that comes as a change to the county code, which is what comes from the state, and of course it's another unfunded mandate. I do have to say that the state does pay for our training. I am an accredited veteran service officer. We have to get training, take a test, pass the test. It's good for 5 years, and every year we have to go for continuing education, and the state pays for us to be at Indiantown Gap and the mileage and so on, and they provide the training. So the state does do that for us. Of course, then we provide the flag holder and the flag, and we've been giving the peacetime marker for quite a long time already for the flag holder to a peacetime veteran. An interesting thing is that any veteran that served since 1990 is considered a wartime veteran because Congress or the President never declared an end to the Persian Gulf War. So anybody from then until the present.
That include you?
Even before that.
Got a couple medals somewhere.
Okay, I thought I could go over phone calls. We receive quite a few phone calls, and that will kind of describe the benefits that I'm going to talk about. Some days we could receive 15, 20, or more calls. Sometimes we have 2 lines, and both of us will be on the phone. Probably the most frequent one we receive is about somebody will call, and it's usually the child of a wartime veteran, usually a World War II veteran, and they say, my father is, I have to put him in a nursing home. I have to put him in assisted living. What help can the Veterans Administration be? And that's probably our longest. It takes probably a good 15 to 20 minutes to explain this benefit. And if I may, I'd like to give you this.
Thank you.
So this, the veteran has to have served during wartime, and this is called a non-service connected pension. And it's actually based on income and assets. If the veteran and his spouse, and they count both incomes, if they have over $80,000, of assets, they don't count the house or a car, then they can apply for this. Otherwise, they're considered to have too much net worth. They also look at the income, both spouse and the veteran. And you can see the levels there. There's 3 different levels of pension. And the levels are very low, especially for the widow. If you notice, it's like $600 a month, $600 and some dollars. But what they can do is they can use out-of-pocket medical expenses to reduce their income. So anything that they have to pay for, like co-pays for medication, there's a standard Medicare deduction. Everybody on Social Security pays. There's a Medicare that everybody pays for on Social Security, $96.40 it usually is a month. And what happens is a lot of people aren't eligible until they have to go into a facility because you can use the cost of the facility, and that usually makes them eligible then because it eliminates all their income. They're so expensive. So then they become eligible and they get the full benefit, which would be whatever is listed there on those, the guidelines there. And that's probably our most frequent call now, and word gets around, like if I help one person, somebody else will call and they'll say, well, you help so-and-so, can you explain this to us? And it's a pretty long and involved phone call. These things aren't easy. They're based on financial need. So it's not an automatic thing. And sometimes we'll get people come in with 300,000-400,000 assets and they want to apply for this. Well, of course, they have too much net worth, and it's not meant for that. The other benefit, there's the pension for the veteran, and there's the widow's pension, and both of those are based on the income and assets. Then the next most frequent call we get is about health care, VA health care. A lot of that is because people are losing their jobs, they don't have health care anymore, and they come, we work closely with the clinics in Allentown and up in Slateville, and they're looking for help with their health care. So we have the application packets here, we can explain it to them. Now, if a veteran doesn't have a Purple Heart or a service-connected condition or served during Vietnam, it's based on income again, income and assets. Before 2003, the VA accepted every veteran, but then in 2003, Congress changed that, and now if they don't have those conditions, it's again based on income, and they probably will have co-pays to pay for their medication and things. So, but hey, it's health care, and a lot of people that don't have it, it helps them. Helps quite a few people, and so we get a lot of calls about that. Probably the next most frequent call is, and we get this a lot from the funeral homes, the veteran's discharge. The veteran passes away, they want to apply for the benefits. Family doesn't know where the discharge is. They have no idea. So the funeral home usually calls us, and then we look it up in our files. We go through the recorder's office. It used to be done here when Veterans was in the government center, but now we're in Wolf. So people will say, I don't ever remember bringing that in here. And I'll look, and it might have been 30 or 40 years ago, and it's there. They just don't remember because it was like 40 years ago, because the veteran has to bring the discharge in, and it has to be the original so that we can put it on file. And you get to be good at looking at what is an original, the signatures, does it have an original signature, and so on. Then we send them to the recorder's office. They get photographed and they go on microfilm. But that's probably one of the biggest calls we have. Or the veteran will call. I had a call today from a World War II veteran. Somebody broke into his house, and this was in Bethlehem. He was in the basement, and they were upstairs. They took this box that he had, locked box. They thought he had money in it. His discharge was in it. But luckily, we had it on file, and I put it in the mail for him. And people will come in and say, well, I moved, or maybe they had a fire in their house, whatever, and they don't have it, because you can't apply for any veteran benefit without that. They call it a DD-214 now. That's Department of Defense. World War II was the War Department, so it was WD. So it's changed a lot over the years, but they must have that to apply for benefits. The next thing would be compensation. Now, these are all federal benefits, all through the federal government. Compensation is based on service connection. In other words, the veteran was either picked up a disease or an injury in the military. And there's three things that they have to prove. Now, this isn't based on money, though. It's based on that the event happened in the military. There has to be documentation of that. And they also have to have a current chronic medical condition that they have medical records on. And then the thing that can be difficult is proving the link between what happened there and did it cause what the condition is. And that can be difficult because In 1973, there was a fire in St. Louis that destroyed a lot of Army and Air Force records, and these are just gone. And they are reclaiming some of them, actually, up to today. They still are. But a lot of veterans, they can't, the proof can't be found in their files, so unfortunately, that one link is missing, and they don't get service connection. But that's another call that we get. A lot of Vietnam veterans, some of the younger veterans. Just had a young man come in yesterday to file his discharge. He had just gotten back from 2 tours in Iraq. 27 months he was deployed in a war zone. And that's what these young folks are going through now. The clinics are really overwhelmed. The VA is overwhelmed. These benefits can take months to process, sometimes 6 months or more. If there's things missing, it can take a year. And a lot of times we'll get people who don't come in for our help at the beginning, and they file this on their own, and there's items missing, and that just really slows it down. As I've been to Philly, and the people processing these claims literally have piles of folders this high on their desk. And if they have to stop and write what they call a development letter and send it to the person, then that folder goes down in the bottom of the pile, and it's just, there's a big backlog, and the VA is trying to work on reducing it, but it's a nationwide backlog. And it's a shame, but they are overwhelmed. The next thing we get are just general information calls, people asking for help with various things. Sometimes we'll consult with mental health, or a lot of times with aging. We work together really well in trying to help the people. We had a call not long ago, I don't know if you saw in the paper about this, his name was Bond, I believe. His young man's submarine sunk in World War II. We did the research, and Jane is really good at this, and got a lot of the information that they needed. We had some of it in our files, but we did, on the internet, researched it. We do a lot of that for people, researching to help them out. Okay, now those are basically the federal benefits. Now there also are state veterans benefits. One of them is called emergency assistance, and that is when it has to be a wartime veteran, when they have a sudden loss of income within the last 6 months, they can apply for this emergency assistance. It's a small cash amount. It's about $200 and some a month, depending on the size of their family, and it's for 3 months. But if they're getting welfare, they can't get this. So I have to check with welfare, make sure they're not getting welfare. And then if they practically have to have like zero income to get this. But it is at least a little bit for a couple of months. The other one is the tax exemption that is provided to, this is a state benefit. The veteran has to be 100% disabled, service-connected, wartime veteran, and permanently and totally disabled to get this benefit. And their income has to be below $79,000. If they have a high income, they wouldn't get it. And these are taking about 5 or 6 months for the state to process. They have one person doing it for the whole state, and there's one person that helps them when they can, but they're backlogged too in these claims. So, but that provides exemption to property taxes, anything based on millage. But we'll have veterans call with, I heard you have a tax exemption, and they're like 10%. No. And the states are all different. And they'll say, well, over in New Jersey, we have such and such. Well, that's New Jersey. This is Pennsylvania. So all the states are different in that respect. They all have different benefits. There's one thing that I didn't mention. I meant to back. The VA just started a new benefit. They call it a medallion. that goes, it's in lieu of the flat government marker. And it's small, it's about it can be 3 or 5 inches. And it attaches to the private tombstone. And this is the thing they just came out with.
What's it made of?
It's bronze, but the person can attach it themselves, actually, and it eliminates the need for the $100 installation. So they just came out with this, I think it was June. And the VA has been making a lot of changes. General Shinseki, who's the head of the VA now, is a Vietnam veteran, and he's been trying to help Vietnam veterans who've been a largely ignored group. They were treated badly by the public, the government, and finally he's trying to help them out. He's actually a disabled Vietnam veteran himself. One thing they did, they cut the main form from 20-some pages to apply for these down to 12 pages. I mean, it's still tough. But we assist the people in filling these out because people are just overwhelmed. They look at this and they say, oh my God, what do I do? And that's why we're there to help them through this maze of paperwork. People really do appreciate it. They say that there's no way we could have done it without you. And so we use the Adjutant General of Pennsylvania as who we send our claims through, but there's a lot of those groups that help. The Legion, the VFW, they're all in Philadelphia and on one floor, and the claims go to them, then they go upstairs to the VA. But they're all there to assist veterans. They have, as I said, I've been to Philadelphia. They have a cart that is electronic, and it goes on a track, and they put the file folder on, and then they push a button, and it goes to the next department. They showed us one claim that was 6 of the, like computer paper boxes that was full. That was one individual's claim over the years. It was 6 computer boxes of paper. And it's just unbelievable. And another thing that I wanted to add that I'm proud of is that we helped get what's called it's a satellite vet center in Nazareth.
Thank you. Scranton.
It's only 2 days. It's 2 days a month. The main vet center is in Scranton, in our area, but there is one established now in Nazareth. What vet centers do is provide counseling to combat veterans and their families. And you don't need a lot of red tape. All the veteran needs is their discharge. These actually came up during Vietnam when veterans were very distrustful of the government, and they didn't want to fill out a lot of paperwork, but they needed help. So that's why vet centers came up, and all they need is that, and they can get counseling. And these young folks coming back are really in need of it. They're having multiple deployments, some of them 3 and 4 tours in a war zone. Vietnam, there was a 13-month tour in Vietnam. That was all the person had to do. Now they're having multiple deployments because we have a small military now. And that's why they rely so hardly on the National Guard and the reserves, which they do. Most people in the Guard and reserves have been deployed several times by this time. And when I go to Indiantown Gap, it's just amazing how busy that is. All these young folks, we had our training in a mess hall one time, and they were lined up. It reminded me of basic training again. But the Indiantown Gap is very busy. It's actually a helicopter training center for the East Coast. They have a simulator there, and that's why you see a lot of military helicopters around here different times, because it's a training area down there. They have acres and acres of training area there. It's really a busy place. Okay, that's really my presentation, unless you have any questions about anything. Tried to cover about everything I could think of.
We have a member from the audience.
Dave, did you mention about that new mandate we got unfunded?
Yes,
State, you mentioned it.
we talked about that at the beginning. The installation for the peacetime.
Peacetime.
Mhm.
Anybody else? Ms. Farrar?
About how much that's going to cost the county next year?
We
It-
increased that line item by $10,000, but we have no idea. So we may come back to you in the middle of the year for additional funding. But we have no idea what the demand is because it is new. We will advertise it through funeral homes because they really are the best source because they deal with families.
And they start to claim, really, the funeral homes do in our county.
Well, just refresh my memory. The quote peacetime
Mhm.
benefit was only $100.
Right.
Okay, we could always do. You know, I'm trying to figure out how many veterans that we even have in our county. It's 300.
We have about approximately 27,000.
27,000 veterans. You're
Veterans.
saying about almost 10% of our county is committed service to our good country.
Pennsylvania has over 1.something million veterans. There's a lot of veterans out there.
Well, that's good to hear.
One person talked to me wanting to get that for some of the VA benefits,
Mm-hmm.
prescriptions and so forth.
Right.
He said he never made $30,000 a year, but he keeps getting turned down because he has too much income. There's too much. So
Is it? Does he have a spouse?
Yeah.
See, they count both incomes, and also if their assets are over 80,000, they probably wouldn't. Yeah, if the person has excess assets.
Dents all of a sudden, some work off the shelves. So then
That's kind of the cutoff.
1,000 is kind of-
Yeah, and they don't really publish that, but that's the way it is. Now,
His house doesn't count.
the house doesn't count, or a car, unless you have another house in Florida, then they count that. And some people do.
Anything else?
I had a question. One of the counties that I had talked to out at CCAT meeting, they've done like bus tours to the World War II memorial for veterans, things like that. Have you ever thought of doing anything like that, or do you get involved with maybe a group like that in any way?
Well, I know at the down at the clinic, I know I think they've done that down there. Yeah, I've heard of that, right?
Don't some of the veterans organizations also do that?
Some of them do.
EFW kind of thing, sounds like.
Right. Yeah, I belong to the American Legion and a group called the Joint Veterans Council, and they have bus trips from time to time. Like here, the Joint Veterans Council is a good group because it's comprised of people from all the different groups: VFW, the Marine Corps League, the Legion, all the different veterans group, AMVETS, and we meet once a month, and they've done things like that. So.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. One, I want to very well compliment you. I remember when I was running for election last year, you know how it is when you get a little bit older as a vet, you start wearing the hats, the Korean War vet, United States Navy retired, that kind of stuff. And I'm always a kind of people person and I wanted to chat with people and everything. And there was a general consensus. Whenever we talked, there's a lot of medals when I got out that just weren't available. I guess like too many of us were good at one time, and we get good conduct medals were in short supply. It's just hard to believe. But what happens is that I joke about it, that some of my ribbons I never really got. I had to buy my own. I never got my initial issuance. And that's like 20 years ago for me. And so a lot of the general consensus was, you got to go down to Wolf Building and talk to that man. He works up and down, and then he will find every way to make sure that you get what's owed to you. And then I just want to say that it's word of mouth advertisement amongst the veterans is that if there is something that they need help with, they do have a source of going to the county. So I want to commend you on the good work.
Good.
The other thing too is always have to come down to dollars and cents. The funding, we keep hearing a lot of council members that want 10% cut here, 10% cut there. How is your funding this year? Since, once again, we are losing more and more World War II veterans faster and faster every year. How's your funding this year?
Yesterday, Jane cut out 7 obituaries of veterans that died, just yesterday. So far, I believe we've spent $55,500 in that burial allowance. So that's 555, veterans, actually. We're okay right now.
Okay,
We'll
so
see how it comes.
the money is there for the rest of the year, and even though the
Should be.
state has put down more obligations as far as the, quote, what they call peacetime veterans, which doesn't sound right, because I always thought we were, even in peace, we were a deterrent force, right? So
That's the way the federal government looks at it.
I have no problems with that. If you gave your time and your parts of your sanity to serve our country, you might as well get some respect, even if it's at the end of life.
That's the way I look at it, yeah.
So what ends up is that's going to affect your funding, of course. Ross stated that it's a $10,000 line item for 2011's budget. How about as far as the rate of, like I stated, some of our vets are dying a little bit faster every year. We are getting new people coming in to retire in our area, an older generation. We keep
Right.
What's expected as far as your funding, as far as your needs for 2011? You stated 2010 you're fine. 2011.
We did add the $10,000, and we added some in the couple $1,000s for the flags and the markers. Stealing those markers is another issue we run into.
Quite a bit. And I notice we don't do brass anymore, or bronze.
No,
It's brass.
hardly anybody does. Those are the ones they steal,
Yeah,
because they can get a lot more money for them.
Well, I'll stay on the funny thing. Just remind me, I have a marker question after that. But your funding for 2011 is anticipated to go up, of course, and that's because, once again, it's the death benefits and everything.
Right.
And the markers.
And the markers.
Markers and flags, right.
Between the two line items, it'll be about a $12,000 increase. We tried to offset that as much as we could in other line items, but in a budget as small as Veterans Affairs, we couldn't do it.
Well, just the whole attitude. I remember in my youth, the Vietnam era and the horror stories. My stepdad was a Vietnam vet, and all the different things was the government has never been very appreciative of the men and women of a country that served this country. So I really don't believe that your budget has a lot of fat on it to begin with to do any cuts there. So obviously, and then with there's more demands on your services, it would anticipate your budget would reflect that from year to year. That's understandable and everything. That's why I was wondering when some people want 10% across the board. So it is anticipated your budget demands are going to be required to go up for 2011 because one.
Good.
In 2011?
Yeah.
I know it's a little early on the budget stuff. I don't know if you submitted to the executive or
Yeah, we
not.
did.
Is that it there?
2 weeks from tomorrow, we get it, right?
In a rough amount is that the total increase in that division will be around $25,000 increase.
Percentage-wise, what would that be?
It would be around 10%.
So that's just a simple, nice little 10%, even though you're servicing so many more people.
And we already explained 12,000 of it, but that also would include the rise in fringe benefits, and so.
Now, as far as back to the markers, in the morning call, they'd stated that they found a whole bunch of them in the Lehigh River. A canoeist had went by. A lot of those markers, I presumed, were damaged, and they were unable to find their original home.
Right.
Has the county been involved as far as trying to find the original owners of these markers?
They were pretty sure came from Lehigh County.
All Lehigh County.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
That's what I understand.
As far as when a veteran does have his or her marker damaged,
Yes.
does the county work in some way to try to get a replacement?
We replace those, yeah.
Okay.
People come in weekly, just about. We'll have, my father's marker is missing, my father's marker is damaged, and we replace it for them. And then when they're stolen, we had the one cemetery in Northampton. This past summer, we had to replace like 70 markers that were.
Wow.
Sometimes they'll they'll take off the rod part and sell that, because the back of the other one is, the rounder, the emblem is stamped, given by Northampton County, or given by the county. So they have a harder time selling those in the scrapyard. They'll just let those lay and take the rods.
Wow.
So
The old rods were
Or
also...
bronze as
bronze, right?
well. My goodness, I just absolutely love people at
Yeah,
those.
isn't that great?
Now, when my DD-214, I got a certified copy as soon as I got out of the military. Well,
Yes.
place that. As soon as I got a new place of residence
Mm-hmm.
down in Virginia, they had some great VA services there. What is the cost of getting a certified copy or putting it on the microfiche?
None.
None. So
We do that.
if I update mine and bring mine in, because mine's sitting in the safe, which could very well end up on the back of someone's truck, or anything. So there's no,
Yeah, you can
no
put it on
cost.
file, right?
Good.
We
And that is-
do keep the original or the certified copy as long as it takes to process, which is a period of time.
Okay.
But right away, we can make certified copies from it.
Excellent.
Immediately, so.
So in order to put it on file, there is some delay, right? You hold on to it
Well, you'll have a certified copy right away that you can use. It's
Okay.
as good as the
in
original.
the interim, yes.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. And no cost associated with that. And also, Thomas Vaughn, that has been in the news. I'm glad you raised that. Has the county been involved with his memorial that they're trying to put together? The submariner that finally the mission was declassified, like back in the 90s. The gentleman who's trying to get a memorial for his uncle.
Yeah, once his ship was lost back in,
Yes.
44?
And it was very, very quiet. They hit a mine. You just
Oh, is that
mentioned
the
it.
submarine?
Yes,
Yeah.
Submariner, Thomas Bond.
Oh, right. That's the one I said we researched.
Is there any other things we're doing for that memorial as far as county level?
Well, we
Information
haven't.
gathering.
We haven't given any money, but I understand a bank did.
Okay.
It's covered cost.
Okay, I was wondering if there was a death benefit in that, and like.
Oh, yeah, we're processing that. Actually, we got the application the other day, and we helped find what they needed for that casualty report. You don't get a discharge if you die in service, of course. You have to get a casualty report.
You mean to say this fellow passed away in the 1940s, and this federal government hasn't done anything to recognize it with death benefits and so on?
Well,
Because-
you can get, I don't know, I guess he never had a memorial marker, but even when
Is
somebody is missing, you can get a memorial marker placed in the cemetery on an empty grave.
If
But
someone's MIA, sometimes you have to sue to have them redesignate a KIA or something.
they just
It's not
found that
unusual.
submarine like
Yeah.
last year.
And just declassified the
we can
information
spend
on it.
$3,000 for a coffee pup, but we can't find some way to put a memorial plaque up for a guy who's MIA is just absolutely startling.
Or
to me.
acknowledge that he gave his ultimate
Didn't say
sacrifice to the
startling,
country.
just-
Yes.
Right, young
Gotta
man.
love it. Okay, that's, also, I remember something back in Bush Senior, which was kind of stuck a thorn in our sides when we were in the service. Each branch of service has its own nursing home, as far as I remember. Remember, I'm dealing with 20-plus-year-old information. And they used to charge us like a couple bucks out of a pay period back in 1990 going forward. Have we worked, and I was always told that money was going to be put aside, take care of veterans that had absolutely no other place to go. Have we?
Each branch has a nursing home.
Is there like a
There are
national-
state veterans homes.
Oh, no,
nursing
the federal
homes.
government was taking the money from us. There was like a
Well,
dollar something, and a dollar something back in 1990 in the military was a lot of money.
Same place my Social Security money is.
Same place? It's in the same box, right?
All VA hospitals usually have a nursing home section, like Wilkes-Barre, Coatesville, Lebanon, but I don't know of any just nursing home that's
I
federal.
remember they came down from the Secretary of the Navy, said that there was an actual
Hmm.
physical home for veterans of the United States Navy that basically exhausted. I'm guessing that this was in rainbows and unicorns and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's something wrong from the government.
Maybe they privatized it.
Either way, it would still exist, and it'd probably be a little bit better
It
care
would be
than the
better and
federal
cheaper
government.
than.
Okay, so I'll put down my stories of leprechauns and fairies, my belief. So I guess the money just went somewhere. Question from the audience?
Isn't there value if you move from one county to another, the veteran to register with the new county veterans office?
Oh, there is. They could bring their, discharge there and register it.
If somebody is discharged in Monroe County, you wouldn't know about them if they lived here in Easton you necessarily.
No, but they could still get their discharge from Monroe County. They wouldn't
No, I
have
understand
to.
that. What I'm saying is there is value to come into your office to say, I'm living here now.
Sure.
Because I don't think we mention that very much anywhere.
Yeah, they could register like.
In
you can
fact,
register
like I
yours.
said, I'm going to have to pull my copies out and get it down there because, like I said, my certified copies are over in New Jersey where I took my first job, and it would be nice to stay a little local and everything.
Sure.
Any other questions, Mr. Dowd? You hear?
I apologize for being late. I was at the Northampton County Historical Society Board meeting, so I...
Any questions or anything?
No.
No. Like I said, the word-of-mouth advertisement amongst the veterans is phenomenal as far as what the county services does.
Oh, well, thanks.
So I commend you and your staff and for everything you're doing for us. There's no other questions, and we have one member in the audience. If there's an open floor or anything, I guess not. I guess I'll adjourn the meeting or accept an adjournment.
Do you want to decide on the agenda for next month?
Actually, Mr. Engel's not here, and he's the other one-fourth of the meeting. I think we usually end up finding out like beginning of the month.
Okay.
Okay.
Because one of the things I'm interested in, just in relationship to this, and maybe it does or doesn't fall in your own responsibility, but think about the people in the county who, in the winter, are going to have problems with electricity, problems with gas, problems with heating oil, and so on. And maybe the whole homeless issue might be something I'd be interested in doing something more about.
Well, that would be the IRIS division that we were talking about doing.
Okay.
Information referral emergency services.
I don't think Peg or Mike was here. The only two divisions that we haven't covered yet so far is what they call the IRIS, which is the Information and Referral Emergency Services Director, and the Mental Health Early Intervention Division. So those are the only two, a 50-50 choice. I just want to bounce around before our next meeting which one we would cover.
The only reason I think about that, you're the chair, so you'll make the decision, is that we're coming into the winter. And the homeless can exist in the spring, summer, and fall. We find villages down underneath the Glendon Bridge and throughout the Lehigh Valley. I suspect they're not in Nazareth, Peg, but there are certainly some
We
along
have
the
in
Lehigh.
Hellertown as well. We have an open space that
And,
is used.
And we've experienced it in the town of Phillipsburg as well, along the Delaware. But winter months get remarkably difficult, and we have some different resources for the housing of women and children, nowhere near the same resources to deal with men. And I'm sure this winter, particularly when Med-Ed's power rates go up by 30%, we're going to see more people in distress.
Excuse me, but there is a homeless coordinator at the Allentown Clinic for homeless veterans.
I didn't know that, all right.
The new VA director has said that he wants to eliminate veterans' homelessness within 5 years, which I think is a pretty ambitious goal, but
Well, and the one
that's
thing is, the homeless I've dealt with that, regardless of whether they're veterans or not, a lot of times they were homeless because they didn't want to be in those shelters. It's seen as
Right.
a handout, so like a welfare hotel or something like that. So
A lot of them, there are other profound emotional issues that need to be dealt with.
So you won't ever get to 100 unless you plan on taking people against a will, which
No.
hopefully we don't do.
Well, Giuliani did that in New York City, and
I remember that.
and then the benefit was significant.
If you're interested in that, Gary Rushman, the administrator of Informational Referral Emergency Services, God bless you, would be the person. And Mike, he was the one that attended the
Right.
community connection.
Actually, Margaret.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.